It's the 26th of April 2017 and the semi-finals of the German Cup. Borussia Dortmund are about to face the toughest challenge German football can possibly throw at you. They are facing Bayern Munich at their home turf, the Allianz Arena, a ground that scares even the greatest of teams. It's a tough game, and after 1 hour of playing, Dortmund are behind by 2-1, and with every minute their chances of making the final of the German Cup decrease. But then, in the 68th minute, Aubameyang puts Dortmund back in the game with a goal assisted by none other than Dortmund's bright diamond at the time, Ousmane Dembélé. And the best is yet to come, because about 5 minutes later, that same Dembélé receives the ball at the edge of the area, gets past one player with his typical fake shot move, and strikes the ball perfectly into the top left corner to put Dortmund ahead and send them to the final of the German Cup. Dortmund won that game, against Bayern in the Allianz Arena. All because of one man, Ousmane Dembélé. This guy was only 19 years of age at the moment, and was already one of Dortmund's star players, being infamous for his pace and the terrifying fact that he was perfectly two-footed. Surely, this guy had a bright future ahead and would become one of the generational players of the new generation, next to the likes of Mbappe and Haaland. Definitely now that he had moved to the biggest club in the world, FC Barcelona. But fast forward to the moment that you're watching this video, and where is Dembélé now? Hasn't he won a Ballon d'Or yet? Wait, he's just been a substitutional and average player for Barcelona? Is he at PSG now? He went there for only 50 million euros? Dembélé's career didn't go the way he himself would have hoped to, that's for sure. This player, who could have maybe been an equal match to his friend Mbappe, is now just an average player at PSG. Of course, don't get me wrong, he's got some amazing assets up his sleeve, but we can all agree that he never fulfilled his potential and that his career has been tragic and disappointing rather than prolific and joyous. And why is that even? Where did it go wrong for him? Was it his fault? Maybe it was Barcelona's fault. Whoever is to blame, in this video, that's exactly what we're gonna talk about. So strap yourself as we take a look inside the tragic downfall of Ousmane Dembélé. First, let's go back to the summer of 2017. Like you know from the intro, Ousmane Dembélé is one of the brightest talents in the world, being 20 years of age and already a huge threat to any defense he faces. Barcelona at this point have just lost one of their star players. Neymar, who could have maybe been their future talisman, turned his back on them to go and sign for PSG. With Messi and Suarez, Barcelona's attack is still more than decent, but both of these players aren't that young anymore, and Barcelona want a third attacker to replace Neymar with, someone preferably young who could possibly carry Barcelona in the future. Who could you possibly think of? What player perfectly fits those needs? Exactly, 18-year-old Kylian Mbappe, who just had a stunning season at Monaco. No, sadly, Barcelona don't go down that route, but with 20-year-old Ousmane Dembélé, one of Dortmund's star players, they definitely have a possible replacement for Neymar, right? Well, the worst case scenario starts happening from about the very beginning of that season. In the third game of La Liga, away against Getafe, Dembélé gets injured to his hamstring. The injury would keep him out for about half of that season, before tearing a muscle which kept him out for about an extra month. Long story short, he did have a few bright moments that season. I'm sure some of you can remember that goal against Chelsea in that 3-0 victory at the Camp Nou, but in general he wasn't that same exciting player that he was at Dortmund. He had doubts about him when playing. He wasn't as confident as he was at Dortmund and he didn't have a starting spot in the team. Surely now that Coutinho had arrived as well. Up till now, he just hadn't been living up to the expectations. Surely, for someone that Barcelona had bought for a mind-blowing amount of 135 million euros. At this point, he was most of all just a disappointment, a flop, damblance, a waste of money. So, does anything change the coming 2 seasons? Well, not really. When he's not injured, Dembélé only starts some of the games, and is more of a substitutional player. And again, he's got some bright sparks of his former Dortmund version at moments. Some of you probably remember his solo goal in Champions League against Tottenham, but at the same time he goes from injury to injury to injury to injury. It feels like his career is being injured with some football in between every now and then, when it's usually the opposite. Barcelona definitely wasted all of that money on a flop player like this. Why didn't they just go for Mbappe back then? That was how Barca fans saw Dembélé at that point. there was no hope for this guy anymore, and many even expected him to leave Barcelona. But was it over yet for Ousmane Dembélé, or was there actually still hope? Because in the coming season, under Ronald Koeman, he stays injury-free for most of the season and actually becomes one of Barcelona's more impactful players. He has risen in the pecking order of Barcelona's squad. But remember that might have also been a consequence of Barcelona's squad just becoming worse as well as Dembélé becoming better. So at this moment, fans actually start liking him again, and he seems to be a part of Barcelona's future. He is starting to find himself again that season, but still, he was nowhere near the level that he could have had by now if it wasn't for all of those injuries. And he wasn't better than his 4-year younger Dortmund version either. So eventually his potential was still far from fulfilled. Now, under Xavi, these past 2 seasons, Dembélé still doesn't manage to stay completely injury-free. But when he does play, I think we can all agree that he's Xavi's wildcard, the one who can make an impact. That's about it though, he is unpredictable, but that also meant that you never know whether he will have a good or a bad day. Eventually, the best Dembélé that Barcelona ever sees is exactly that player, the unpredictable wildcard. In some games, almost as good as Neymar, in other games, just nowhere. He still has too much inconsistency about him to even be a reliable Barcelona-level attacker, and that is a true shame if you think back about how good this guy was back at Dortmund. Even after a couple of last nightmarish seasons, he's still far from the player that is actually worth 135 million euros. Far from the player with somewhat the same level as Mbappé, and I think that was his true potential. So even after some redemption seasons under Xavi, I'd say that his career has been a tragic downfall, starting from the moment he signed for Barcelona. And finally, in the summer of 2023, Dembélé decides to leave Barcelona and sign for PSG. That's his own decision, of course. But it's a shame that he never gave more in return for the incredible amount of faith that Xavi put in him after the fans didn't need him anymore in early 2022. And one thing is clear, now that his Barca career is over, he never got close to reaching his potential. And if you ask me, he never will at PSG either. But who or what is to blame for that? Well, a first big reason for Dembélé not becoming the player that he could have actually been, big surprise, are the injuries. Dembélé never had an actual injury-free season in Barcelona, and so he never really became consistent. But are injuries the only thing that is to blame? Because why did he get so much injuries in the first place? Well, that might be the blame on Barcelona and their medical staff. You see, for a long time, Dembélé probably didn't train in the right way to prepare him physically for the games. And why is that? Well, Dembélé is the kind of player who is very impulsive. He does a lot of high-intensity sprints during games, and it's during those kind of sprints that you risk an injury to the hamstring or a teared muscle, and those are the typical injuries Dembélé has been dealing with. For a long time, Dembélé probably followed the same training routine as the other players, and he probably wasn't getting the right type of high-intensity sprint training that he should have gotten that way. And even when he did under Xavi, his way of playing just has so much risk of injuries that he will always be a danger of getting injured. And honestly, some players are just more injury prone than others, and Dembélé ends up being one of those injury prone players. So for the injuries, both Barcelona's coaching and medical staff and Dembélé's body and playing style are to blame. But is there anything else maybe that caused him to miss out on his potential? Well, in his 6 years at Barcelona, Dembélé has had 4 coaches: Ernesto Valverde, Quique Setién, Ronald Koeman and Xavi. This is of course not rocket science. It's going to be more difficult to get really consistent if there's always another coach around when you get back from injury. That definitely didn't help Dembélé get the most out of his Barca career, and it's probably too one of the things to blame for Dembélé's tragic downfall. So, is there anything else that stood in the way of Dembélé reaching his potential? Well, his agents maybe, Moussa Sissoko. There's been a lot of chaos around Dembélé when it came to his contract over the last years. And why is that? His agents has often played the hard way when it came to contract extensions and Dembélé's salary, threatening to not let Dembélé come to training anymore, rumors of Dembélé going elsewhere, you know the deal. Did that help Dembélé make the most out of his Barca career? Definitely not. And I'm sure some of you can remember that it took an incredible gesture from Xavi and the squad to let Dembélé back in again after such a period of rumors in early 2022. So Xavi and the other players are certainly not to blame, but his agents, well, he might definitely be. Long story short, the things that held Dembélé back were probably his injury-prone body and playing style, Barcelona's coaching and medical staff for a long time as well, the inconsistency in Barcelona's recent coaches, and the fact that his agents maybe didn't have Dembélé's consistency at Barcelona at his best interest and rather wanted to play hard to get with Barcelona. All those things, if you ask me, have caused the tragic downfall of Ousmane Dembélé. And in another universe, Dembélé's body and playing style might have been the same, but that's not the case for those other factors. Dembélé could have actually been successful at Barcelona, but the mix of all these things just held him back from actually reaching that potential. Compared to the player he was at Dortmund, he's really just a mere disappointment at this point. And honestly, also at PSG, I don't see him ever reaching that potential again. That was it for today's video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and feel free to share your own opinion in the comments down below. Força Barça, and have a good day.